All right, next is the spinal cord. We'll turn it the right side up. Okay. So in all these terms, I'll be using the terms dorsal. I usually say dorsal ventral, but remember dorsal is the same as toward the tail, toward the back, that's posterior. Ventral is towards the belly, that's the same as anterior. So you will see both of these in probably anterior and posterior more often when you're working with humans, and dorsal and I've learned dorsal and ventral because that's more general if you're using animals as well. Okay, so we're going to be in the spinal cord. This is the kind of butterfly or H shape that you see whenever you look at a cross section of a spinal cord. So this is you're cutting transversely through the spinal cord, and you see the gray matter as a result of that. This is mostly cell bodies in here of those neurons, lots and lots of cell bodies, and so that becomes darker. This is almost all axons. It is axons. So it's that myelinated. We said that myelin is that white fatty substance. That's what's making this matter white. All right. And when you divide up, when you do a cross section, and you we'll look at one half at a time, but it's the same on both halves. You call these areas here, these white areas, they could call them funiculi or funiculus, and it's in your lab notes, so I won't spell it. But the dorsal funiculus is the one that's up here, or the posterior funiculus, like it's this whole space. So this would be the more dorsal. This is towards your back here, and this is towards your belly. So it's both of these spaces together is the dorsal funiculus. The ventral funiculus is this one down here. It goes, and so when you're saying where it the division line is kind of here where this dorsal horn points out, and down here it's usually kind of where the ventral horn points out. So this area here is the ventral or anterior funiculus, and then this is the lateral funiculus, kind of this side and this side. That's the lateral funiculus. All right. This is the dorsal horn, this horn coming up here, same over here, dorsal horn. This is the ventral horn down here. Here's the ventral horn. In this particular section that we have, there's also a little lateral horn coming out like this, but quite often you don't see that. Quite often you just see a big dorsal horn and a big ventral horn. This looks like kind of a thoracic section to me in terms of how the butterfly or the H shape looks. All right. Then you have something, so in the middle is that central canal. So there is kind of you can hardly see it here in this, but there is literally a kind of hole. That's a space, that's the central canal where there's a hole, there's kind of a little groove there. That's the central canal that is full of cerebrospinal fluid. The part of this, like the middle section of the H, the horizontal of the H, that's called the transverse commissure. So again, commissure is kind of like, between connecting, like we had a posterior, anterior commissure in the brain, it's connecting two parts. So it's like the midline of the H, that's the transverse commissure. Then you have right in the middle here, there's like a little indentation. If you look up here, you can kind of see there's a bit of an indentation here. That's the dorsal median sulcus. On the bottom, you actually have a deeper indentation. You can really see the space there. So that's this indentation coming up here. That's the ventral median fissure. All right. I mentioned the central canal. That's what's going right down the center, the little hole in the center. Then you have a dorsolateral sulcus and a ventrolateral sulcus. And so that is, right, so this was the median, this is the median ventral. So kind of you're going lateral, but it's still dorsal. And here you're going lateral, but it's still ventral. So this right here, it's where these roots, this is going to be the dorsal roots, right where they go in. Here, there's another little bit of an indentation. So this is the dorsolateral sulcus. It's where these roots go in, and it usually pretty much goes where this dorsal horn is pointing to. So right there is that dorsolateral sulcus. So sulcus is always indentation. Same thing down here where these ventral roots are kind of inserting, that's going to be the ventrolateral sulcus. So it's kind of right along here. All right. Then the dorsal and ventral root, that's these. So these are literally axons coming along. This is the dorsal root. This is the ventral root, all right? And the dorsal root is all sensory information. It is all information coming in from the rest of the body into the spinal cord, then usually up to the brain. Not always, but so that's dorsal root. Ventral root is this part. That's always information going out, leaving from the spinal cord, going out to the rest of the body, like telling your muscles to move, telling your something else, your heart to go faster, whatever. It's like motor. It's doing something. All right. Then the spinal nerve, this is the dorsal root ganglion. So this is that bump. And it's ganglion is going to mean it's this is all axons, this is axons, this is axons, this is going to be axons, but right in here are cell bodies. They're neurons, and they make this little bump. So there's a whole bunch of dorsal root. This dorsal ganglion is a whole bunch of little cell bodies of some neurons, right? They're the soma, or the cell bodies of the neurons. And you literally see a bump like this. You have ganglions, some nerve ganglions throughout your body, and you can literally see the nerves will be kind of straight, and then the ganglion where the cell bodies are will be bumpy. All right, where the dorsal and ventral root come together, this is the spinal nerve. So this is the spinal nerve, and it contains motor and sensory information. And then, oh, they don't have you know anymore here. Oh yeah, the dorsal ramus and the ventral ramus. This is the dorsal ramus. This is the ventral ramus. I better check that. Actually, I'm not positive. In the quiz, I will tell you for sure if that's right, because now I'm thinking, what's this? But the dorsal ramus is where the information goes to the back part of your body, and the ventral goes to the front part of your body. And then I'll do a little quiz review in the next one.